Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 10 of season 4 of The Walking Dead, called Inmates. For some reason that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, seeing as how very little of the episode is set at the prison. Yeah, the episode title just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, this is our big catch up on what's going on with everybody besides Carl, Michonne, and Rick. And overall, I'd say this is a pretty solid episode. The only problem is we don't really get to spend enough time with everybody to really get a lot to chew on. But anyway, let's sort of just dive right into things and talk a little bit about what's going on. Not really a lot to say about the whole Daryl and Beth thing, except for when Beth was talking at first, I thought she maybe might have been addressing the spirit of Jimmy, her old boyfriend from when we first met her at the farm. But, well, let's face it, nobody really particularly misses Jimmy, so the idea that it turned into this whole, her, like, old diary or something, that's kind of cool, in a kind of Anne Frank sort of way. Now, her interaction with Daryl, well, we haven't really seen too awful much of Daryl and Beth, so, this is potentially interesting. But, yeah, beyond that, we have really just Daryl, who is very much a cynic, and Beth, who is just sort of really in denial about how bad the situation is. But the interesting thing is that, for the most part, most of the main characters that from the prison did survive. So, it's actually, this is one of those times where Beth's perhaps in terms of realism, unfounded optimism is actually going to turn out to be right. But anyway, I do kind of enjoy the okay, let's try that sentence again. I'm looking forward to seeing some more of these two bouncing off each other, just because there's such enormous contrasts. Anyway, so moving on to our next bit, we have Tyrese, Mika, and Lizzie. If I remember right, those are the two girls' names. I've had a little trouble keeping it straight. Okay, well, very quickly we're introduced to we have the mystery of what happened to baby Judith solved. Okay, I figured that's what it was. If she had died, there's no way they wouldn't have made it abundantly clear to us. Anyway, one of the main interesting things, I guess I should say, is just Lizzie holding her hand over the baby's mouth to try and keep it quiet, and the way she was staring at it. You have to wonder whether or not Lizzie really understood that this might potentially kill Judith. I mean, Lizzie's like, what, maybe 11 years old? I can really believe that a kid that age might not fully understand the consequences of doing that to a baby. But just that creepy, like, psychotic look in her eyes, like, oh, man. And then, of course, out of all of it, out of nowhere, turns up Carol. I gotta say, I totally did not expect that to happen. I thought it would be several more episodes before Carol turned up again. And then, of course, it's Tyrese who she runs into. And Tyrese has not been informed about what Carol has done. So, you gotta think, what's going to happen? And Carol, of course, is obviously in no big hurry to tell him. Now, what this is interesting is they find this sort of sanctuary thing saying, come here and you'll be safe at Terminus, which makes me think of an old Doctor Who episode called Terminus, but I was actually watching Doctor Who clips on YouTube right before I made this, so that might just have something to do with it. Pretty solid episode, Terminus. I was very sad to see Nyssa leave the show. But anyway, I can't help but wonder if maybe this might be the beginning of actually us seeing the Hunters storyline from the comics. There's a storyline called the Hunters. Again, like many of the Walking Dead stories, quite dark, but it remains to be seen. Let me see here. Also, moving on, we get to see what's going on with Maggie and her friends Bob and crap. I forgot Tyrese's sister's name. Well, not a whole lot to say about those two. Just that Bob is representing the more optimistic view of things. Hey, we're alive. And again, this is sort of a little bit of a contrast to the way people are taking the situation. Bob is taking things a little bit more, well, you can't really say he's taking things the way Beth is. Beth is sort of really in denial about just how bad the situation is. Bob's taking a, hey, at least we're alive, let's look on the bright side sort of view of things. And Maggie, watching that scene at the bus when that big burly dude Walker was coming towards her, I couldn't help but wonder if Maggie didn't at that point have a little bit of a death wish. It's just like, okay, I think Glenn is dead. I don't care anymore. Now that might just be me misinterpreting the situation. But yeah, Maggie is definitely adrift. And of course that does bring us to Glenn. And I guess I kind of forgotten that he actually did get off the bus when it was escaping from the prison. So I honestly thought that he was going to be around the bus somewhere. Him waking up at the prison, I had completely forgotten he was there. So looking at him and seeing him there and the walkers just clawing at him in classic zombie movie fashion, that was pretty intense. It's just like, wow, Glenn, you are unbelievably screwed. Now, I guess it seemed a little convenient that Glenn was able to go and poke around inside the prison. I guess the walkers hadn't busted through a door somewhere or hadn't gotten to that area yet, which, considering the sheer numbers of the things, seems kind of odd, but okay. Who knows what door is locked and how securely, and at this point it doesn't really matter. Now, I did like how they that he was able to dig out the riot gear. That was cool. That made sense that he would still have that, and he uses it in a smart way. What really does bother me is Glenn, seriously, there wasn't a dead walker somewhere in that area that you couldn't have, cut open and covered yourself in walker guts like you and Rick did back in season 1 so that they would pretty much leave you alone? If you'd have done that and taken it so you could have strolled on out there with no real problems. Now, of course, all of this is probably would have made it a little too easy, so of course we have to have a complication there, and that is, of course, Glenn stumbling upon Tara. And I really like how he makes it very clear to her once they're out of there, I don't want you around, but I need you. It's clear Glenn's not going to take a forgive or forget attitude on this, but he's able to read enough in Tara to realize that she is genuinely sincere in feeling regretful about what she had a hand in. I almost half expected him at the very end to say, you know what, if you feel that bad about the whole situation, consider helping me to find my wife as a way to start repenting. But I guess at the end of the day, that doesn't really sound like the sort of thing that Glenn would say. But anyway, this episode does wrap up with our introduction of 3 new characters. If you were listening to the preview at the end of the credits, you saw the fellow with the rather impressive mustache introduce himself as Abraham. His 2 friends, I'll just tell you their names now because I don't really consider that a spoiler, are Eugene and Rosita, and I gotta say, guys, I'm really excited about this. These 3 are very, very cool characters. Abraham's a tough dude. He is a badass fella. And them showing up opens up the doors to some very, very big stuff. Yeah, this is really the next chapter in so many ways. At least it is in the comics. Now, where things are going to go here in the TV show, I don't know. But, it might be time to get on out of Georgia, is all I gotta say. Anyway, folks, at the end of the day, this is a really pretty solid episode. Each of the little mini stories are pretty good. We get to see the pieces, they're moving around the board, and things are going to start coming together, and we're going to be in for some cool stuff. I haven't heard about Walking Dead being renewed for a 5th season yet, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me. And if they do that, then oh man, will we be in for some intense stuff. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you this time around. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.